Hey everyone, my name is Willson. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Borderless AI, also the host of Make It Click podcast. We have Boris Wertz on the show today. Boris manages roughly $500 million Canadian in his fund, Version 1 Ventures. He's the general partner of Version 1. Clio, Jobber, Ada, Coinbase are some of his select investments. Really looking forward to jumping in, and thanks again to Boris for spending over an hour with me today. Looking forward to the show. Boris, thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really. We got connected, I would say like 12 years ago, probably.
So that long ago?
That long,
okay,
yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, I've been doing startups my whole life, kind of the same as you, sort of, kind of. You have a new fund. You got lots going on. Would love just to kind of hear, we can go into the backstory. I'm sure you're not tired, but I'm sure you tell it a lot. But maybe what's like the current state of affairs with the fund and just for those watching, kind of, because you have some news that came out a month ago and there's lots going on in your world. So
yeah, for sure. So Version 1 Ventures is an early stage fund investing in mission-driven founders that are early in new areas. Generalist VC investing at the pre-seed seed stage. Just announced our latest fund, which is a Fund 5, $78 million USD, plus a $30 million opportunity fund, our Opportunity Fund 3, where we double down on kind of the breakout companies, the category leaders in our portfolio. So excited to have fresh capital available to continue to do what we're doing, investing in some of the best founders that we see in North America and beyond.
Nice. And then congrats on that, by the way. How much how different would you say is raising a fund versus if you're a founder raising money? How different's the process?
I think it's like there's lots of similarities, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you raising a fund or raising for a startup. You need to pitch your story. You need to convince investors to give you money for what are you going to plan to build in the future or invest in the future. Having said that, there's also a bunch of differences. Funds, if they are successful, right? If they provide returns, they have lots of investors that kind of continue to double down and kind of stick with the franchise. So you don't need to always find a new lead. Kind of Fund 5, hopefully, if you've done a good job, if you have a great LP base, comes mostly from existing LPs. So you don't have to find a new lead, new money per se.
Yeah. And what's the, do you disclose some of your LPs? Because some of them are local.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole range, I would say. It's like, on the one hand side, lots of Canadian LPs, fund of funds, Harbor Vest, Northleaf, Kensington. There's a bunch of international LPs that we have talked about. An Israeli fund called Vintage, which is a Israeli fund of funds. And then a bunch of family offices, high net worth, entrepreneurs, etc. But most of the LP base has been very, very stable since at least Fund 3.
Congrats. That means you're doing a good job.
Yeah, hopefully.
So the show's called Make It Click. So if I hear an opportunities fund, what does that mean? Like if I'm a founder and I'm on your website, really nice website, by the way. If I'm on your website and I see, 30 million opportunities, what does that actually mean to me?
So I think at some stage we realized a few funds in, right, that there were a bunch of really breakout companies in our portfolio that had a clear path to being a large standalone company down the road. But obviously, given our fund size in the core funds, we couldn't really double down on later rounds. So that's where we decided we want to raise an extra fund, an extra pool of capital where we could put more money into our highest conviction opportunities within the portfolio. So that's a core fund is usually 25 to 30 companies, right? Lots of them, obviously, as with all early stage, don't work out. But some do. And the ones that do, we want to double down in. And so an opportunity fund has a very concentrated portfolio of 5 to 6 positions. So much more later stage. Much more stable in a certain way.
And is that to protect the current ownership or buy more?
So there's a few reasons. I mean, the first one is we want to buy more, right, and double down on something that is working, clearly working. We've been working with these founders for such a long time. We know them inside out. We know the business inside out. We know all the strengths and weaknesses. So we have a really great inside knowledge into this opportunity. But I think the second thing is also we want to double down on the relationship with the founders, right? And often these companies, we sit on the board, so we want to be kind of an active investor, not just having kind of written the seed check, perhaps the Series A check, but doubling down on the Series B, Series C, and being kind of a long-term partner.
Yeah, and you typically get involved at companies at the seed, pre-seed stage.
Yeah, in general, we think of ourselves as hopefully being the first institutional investor, right? And so sometimes that happens at the pre-seed stage, sometimes it happens at the seed stage. Beyond that, usually it gets too late for us. But ultimately, I think what we're really good at is taking a founder bet, right? There's usually not much traction. A founder bet that is working on something unique in what can become a really large market, right? And so it's much more of a idea than there is like concrete traction. There is a kind of a concrete product market fit or something like that. Right? And so that's really where we feel comfortable playing.
Would you again make it click? What's the difference? And maybe I look ignorant by asking this question, and I don't really care. But what's the difference between pre-seed and seed?
Listen, these terms are kind of changing around all the time, right?
Somebody just raised $100 million seed.
I mean, by definition, pre-seed doesn't make sense. Like seed is like you started. Pre-seed doesn't really make sense.
Because ultimately, when does angel come?
Yeah, I mean, there's friends and family, there's angel round, there's pre-seed, there's seed. It really doesn't really matter. I think the way we think about it, we want to be a super early backer. We're comfortable taking these super early risks on and bets on founders. And it doesn't matter is it called a pre-seed round or a seed round or something else, right? That's kind of terms that change all the time as kind of the market shifts and kind of people go early or a little later, et cetera.
I was in SF a couple weeks ago, kind of jamming at a WeWork. I was in an elevator and I ran into an investor that I know. You would know them too. Probably you might invest alongside them. And they were like, hey, we're doing all these pre-seed seed deals, but it's so hard to compete in the Bay because the valuations have just got crazy. And like we used to kind of do these YC demo day deals, but we can't do those anymore because our check size is kind of that, they do 200 to 500K bets and the valuations. Is that a thing in your world? Do you see that front and center too?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, first of all, I would say it's incredibly competitive for everything that is related to AI. Right? Okay, I think it's a very AI related space. I think it's also everything is very competitive when it comes to the Bay. There's just lots of money, lots of competition. And kind of these seed rounds or pre-seed rounds have really creeped up in size, in valuation, et cetera. Now, I think for us, we were never about investing in the current wave, right? What is currently legible and mainstream to investors. We were always about finding founders that worked on something unique way earlier before it became a mainstream category, right? And so I don't think so much about like what's happening in the AI early stage field. That's not really relevant to us. As long as we can find really interesting opportunities that are outside of that mainstream. Have valuation creeped up in that space as well? Yes.
Of course.
So has the ultimate opportunity to build really large companies, right? I think when we started investing 14 years ago, Yes, there were deals that kind of you could invest for low $1 million post valuations at the pre-seed stage, right? But we also thought like the ultimate outcome would be hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps you can't really invest under 10 million anymore, but you also kind of can make the case that this can be $1 billion, multiple $1 billion outcome, right? And so I think entry valuations have just kind of increased alongside an expansion in TAM, expansion in the opportunity. But yeah, there's some pockets in AI, for example, that feel very, very crazy right now.
Yeah, for sure. When you bet on the founder so much, working on something frontier, something not obvious, and this like the category might not be obvious, do you find you're betting too much? And this is just my personal question. Do you find you're betting too much on the category and there might be a risk on the category? Founder might crush it in something else, but...
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that's part of our business, right? That you just don't know which wave, which category will really develop and really have tailwinds, right? But that's the beauty of running a fund.
Yeah.
We make 25 to 30 investments, right?
Within the fund.
Across the fund. They're across many different categories. There's always probably in every fund, there's 3 or 4 dominant categories where we make multiple bets. But then there's a bunch of stuff that's just interesting without really being part of a very large category or kind of very large wave. And ultimately, as long as we don't bet the whole fund on one category and that category doesn't work out, I'm completely fine taking that bet. It's, early stage investing is very hard. Kind of you never know how these waves played out. Yeah. You never know even if the wave plays out, if the company you back, the founder you back becomes the category leader and kind of creates most of the value. Lots of these things can happen, right? But that's why we have a broader portfolio of 25 to 30 investments in every fund. And
you're going less and less in Canadian deals? Because I read somewhere, and I don't believe everything. Like 10%?
I mean, listen, I would say we have no geographical focus or target, right? What we try to invest in is like the best opportunities, the best founders, independent of geography. Now in Fund 1, which we invested in 2012 to 14, we invested about half our fund in Canada, right? And I would say that has gone down to, in the latest fund, Fund 4, to 10 to 15%, right? Now, it's probably due to two factors. First of all, I think we have improved our deal flow in other geographies, the US, and kind of we do some stuff in India. But secondly, also that perhaps Canada had a very special moment back in 2012 to 14, where lots of startups that became category leaders, especially on the vertical SaaS side, came out of Canada. Clio, Jobber,
and
just two examples. We're invested in both of them. Just two examples, right? And so I would say Canadian deal flow probably has gone down a little bit. Interesting deal for us. At the same time, kind of we expanded our reach, and that kind of led to kind of the decline from 50% to 10 to 15%. But listen, we would love to do more in Canada. We hope that you're going to see and meet more ambitious entrepreneurs that are building unique things out of Canada. And right now it feels a little light.
Yeah. Interesting. Why do you think that is? Is there, like, just without looking too much at the data, like, why do you think the deal flow in Canada would be a little soft?
I would say there's 3 things I would mention. I mean, the first one, this country has not really been very friendly to entrepreneurs in general for the last decade, right? Regulation, tax, just generally endorsement of entrepreneurial activity, right? So that needs to get fixed. I think the second thing is COVID has had a really bad impact on smaller tech ecosystems. Builders become successful, right, when they are in the room with other builders, in a dense ecosystem with other builders, learn from each other, inspire each other, push each other, right? And even before COVID, our tech ecosystem, if that is Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver, weren't super dense, right? But there was some density.
There was.
And that really broke down
Yeah.
through COVID as remote work took over.
Yeah.
Physical spaces where people met
Yeah.
kind of got closed. So that hasn't helped kind of any of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And you see it kind of probably most visibly in Waterloo, even though like there seems to be a turnaround happening, but
Yeah.
Waterloo was a super interesting, super strong in-person community,
Yeah.
and kind of got completely destroyed through COVID. Again, signs of rebuilding there, but completely destroyed. And then the third one is like this current wave of AI is very much driven by in-person in San Francisco.
Totally. Yeah.
And so I think it's not even a Canada-specific fact, right?
Yeah.
You look at when you talk to people in Seattle, they feel the
Yeah.
same thing. They losing
Yeah.
great young entrepreneurs that are building an AI to SF. So I would say we need to do better as a country.
Yeah.
We need to rebuild the physical aspect, the density of tech ecosystem in Canada. And then, as AI matures, we're going to see kind of that also spread out to other ecosystems. And San Francisco will be not as dominant anymore as a tech ecosystem. Right now it is, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels like 80-90% of all AI activity is happening in that ecosystem.
Yeah. Interesting. When you meet teams, do you ever go like, are there any specific benchmarks on revenue or traction ever? Or are you doing pre-revenue?
At the time we invest, usually, right? This is all about a founder bet, and a team bet, and an interesting category, et cetera, right? So rarely do we invest in companies that have revenues.
Have you seen any deals come your way from founders you've backed before?
Yes, I mean all the time, and in two ways, right? We have a bunch of repeat founders in the portfolio, so we backed once.
You backed them once,
again,
you backed
right?
again, yeah.
So there's Mike Silaghetsi who built Top Hat, right? In the education space.
Yeah.
He was a fund one entrepreneur, and he has now built EtherFi, which is a crypto bank. New bank in the crypto space based on crypto rails. He's a fund 4 portfolio founder again. So that's the one thing. But then obviously, kind of over the years, we invested in about a little bit more than 100 companies, 200 founders. We always say once version 1, always version 1 founder, right? And so we stay in touch with our founders and they send us deals. So obviously, if you do a good job and be a great partner to them, hopefully they remember you as someone to send deals to as they see them down the road.
Are you, how many like cold emails do you get, like pitch decks a week? Not a day, but like a week? Because you're on the internet. Counted,
but it's like in the high dozens, right?
Really?
And partly I feel like LLMs have increased it. The friction of creating what they think is a personalized pitch email has gone down. And it feels like there's just an explosion of outbound email that looks relatively personalized. When you dig down, it is always the same schema, and it's not as personalized as people assume. But I feel like that inbound
auto delete.
No, I mean, I always look at it. Listen, you never know if there's something there that is really interesting. But obviously, in a super noisy environment, it always helps, right? As a founder to have a warm introduction.
Totally.
And kind of get into somebody's email inbox and with a much higher priority than kind of an inbound email.
I remember now how we first met. We got, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, but the founders of Connect.
Yeah.
Connect. They introduced us about 12 years ago. That's how we That's how we got in touch. On the maybe the backstory. So you used to be a founder.
Yeah.
I'll summarize in my own words because I do a bit of prep for these, but it's kind of replaces a coffee meeting. Like you and I, if it wasn't for this podcast, we're not probably going out for lunch. Like, you're a nice guy, but we're both busy. But this kind of brings us closer. So I like to keep it casual, so I don't do too much prep. If I'm to summarize it, you started the online book version of Amazon in Germany. That was your kind of, you did a fast follower
Yeah, so not of Amazon, of a book. So we were focused on user out of print books. So
Yeah.
a niche,
A niche,
not like the online book version of Amazon, kind of focus on new books, right?
Yeah.
But user out of print books. But yeah, the German equivalent of there was two companies in the US, Canada that built this.
Okay.
A Books.
A-Books.
Our ultimate acquirer was one of them.
Okay, got it. So Just Books was what you built.
That's correct. And we started in Germany, expanded to the UK, expanded to France. And then in 2001, the internet bubble had burst.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to raise any money. It was kind of what we called the nuclear winter back in the days.
Yeah.
And luckily, A Books, our competitor out of North America, had bootstrapped, never raised any venture money, was profitable, was looking to expand into Europe. Right?
Okay.
And so we put the two companies together.
Yeah.
And as part of the transaction, my co-founder Hannes and myself, we came over to Canada to become CEO and COO. Right?
Oh, wow.
And so in a certain way, kind of really lucky outcome for us, because it would have been a really tough path as a standalone company. But,
so awesome story. And they're in Victoria.
Yeah.
So they were founded in Victoria?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I go there, I see they have like an office there.
Yeah. It's so, so to continue that story, we continued to build it for 5 years.
Yeah.
Then sold it to Amazon.
That's right.
And to this day, it's an independent subsidiary of Amazon, right? Doing super well.
Yeah.
Amazon has been a great owner of that company.
Yeah.
They're still based in Victoria. Still have an office building there. Still have a a team of 100+ people there, and have been a kind of a really niche story, but thriving in that niche.
Yeah. Yeah. And your co-founder Hannes is still there.
That's
in
correct.
Victoria.
He's in Victoria. He's not working anymore
Playing
for
tennis.
A Books, but playing tennis and golf and doing some investing.
At Acton.
Yeah, that's correct.
Nice. On the acquisition piece, so you said it would have been a tough go if you were to stay standalone. Is that because the reliance on capital, nuclear winter, hard to raise? Did you want to sell? Did you not want to be a founder anymore? Just help.
Listen, I think that the reality is in 2001 is everything that people hoped the internet would do ultimately became true, right?
Yeah.
But the size of the businesses at that time was very small relative to the money raised, the size of the teams, right? People had just overestimated how quickly. Yeah, we had raised about 7 or 8 million or something like that. Okay. And people had just overestimated how quickly the internet would evolve, right? And how quickly things would get adopted, right? And so back in the days, this is still like dial-up, slow speed, very expensive development of websites. Your own server that you needed to host your database and your website on versus like AWS. Very inefficient marketing methods, right? There was no PPC. There's no SEO hadn't really evolved in a big way, so it was hard to acquire customers at scale. And so it was just it was still very early in the wave, right? And in 99 and 2000, everybody had assumed it would just go very quickly. And I think ultimately everything that people hoped would come through came through, but it came through a decade later. And at that moment, reality set in, and it's like, wow, we're way over our skis here. Right? And it was just like almost impossible, not only for us, like it was literally across the board. Only your existing investor would potentially put more money into it if they had some, but there was certainly no new money to be had from the market.
Got it. And you guys felt the best way would be to merge with Abe.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think there was any other option.
Okay. Said like a very transparent founder. Appreciate that. On the maybe kind of the more nitty-gritty stuff, because again, back to the whole thesis of this is just like happens to be a podcast, but it's more just a conversation. This kind of like, when do you start your day? How do you go through kind of your day running the firm, team meetings? How often do you meet? When do you meet the founders? How do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, I would
I
say
hear you're
like,
an early bird.
yeah, there's not a single day that looks like another one, right? But there's certain elements to it. First of all, yes, early bird usually start at least at the latest at 6. And in
what
the
do you do?
beginning, it's just
Like, do you have your breakfast and coffee
it's
before
literally
that?
no, just
Roll out onto the screen.
Yeah, quick coffee. But usually always kind of just going through the emails that came in overnight.
Yeah.
Right. And then after that, I would say it kind of the day is usually split into 3 big things.
Yeah.
The first one is new pitches,
Yeah.
right? And it usually starts with like a 30-minute Zoom call that to just understand the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And there could be then follow-up meetings if we go in, but that's kind of a big chunk. The second one is then portfolio management, right? And so I sit on 6 or 7 boards. So there's board meetings.
Okay.
There's catch-up calls with monthly catch-up calls with founders that don't yet have a board, right? And so that's a big chunk of it. And then the third is like everything else, which is like firm building, LP relationships, podcasts like this,
These things,
generally catch up with people, et cetera,
Yeah.
right? And so
biz dev
in a certain way, right? And you kind of I'm usually on the road kind of every 1 or 2 weeks, right? Between San Francisco, Seattle, Toronto, New York, India. And so, kind of some of that, or a lot of that gets done here from Vancouver, but then lots of that gets done on the road, especially meeting kind of portfolio founders, meeting new founders, meeting co-investors, et cetera.
The amount, so you hear pitches every day?
Yeah, I mean, like in like obviously there's a few days that I don't hear pitches, but yeah, I mean, just generally I would say it's at least about 10 a week, give or take, right? That I hear.
And these are entrepreneurs raising money, maybe for the first time, because if they're pre-seed, early stage.
I mean, there's always a good chunk of repeat founders that have raised a few times, right?
Or they've maybe raised some a little bit before.
Or and then sometimes people have raised smaller rounds beforehand.
Yeah.
But it's usually not yet the 7th fundraise that they have been doing for their startup. It's still pretty early.
Yeah. On this whole idea of a $1 billion company ran by one person, how real is that?
I think it's going to happen at some stage. I'm not sure if those people need venture capital money either, right? Because if you really can run, if you find the opportunity, right, to run $1 billion company on just one person with lots of agent support, you're obviously also going to be very capital efficient, right? And find a niche, a sector, a business opportunity where you can scale agents, right? Often what you need to capital for is often go to market, right? And salespeople, if you sell to the enterprise, and kind of that for the foreseeable future, that's not going to get replaced by agents, right? So I think it's going to happen. The one person, $1 billion startup. I don't think it's going to be the majority of startups, and I don't think it's necessarily kind of where we can play as VCs. Having said all that, we see it in our portfolio. I think I've never seen more portfolio companies that with very small teams achieve incredible milestones in terms of revenues and growth rates and et cetera, profitability, right? If you're in the right space, if you're really smart in leveraging AI tools, it's incredible to see what you can do.
How well are you seeing? Because one thing, personally, our company has gone through is or a lot of companies have gone through. Ours might not be the best example, but like in Ada, they didn't start AI native. Right. They've been around for a little bit. How hard are you seeing companies make that switch Do you find, it's really nice to have that native company raise their first capital, first dollar of revenue, they're AI native from the start, or they have this company that's large install base, good revenue pool, and now they need to turn that on?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I think it's like two factors that I would differentiate. The first one is in the area that you're working in, right? How AI native do you need to be, right? Or not? ADA needs to be AI native, right?
Yeah.
Customer support gonna get resolved by AI, right? They're not gonna be much human in the loop going forward, right?
Yeah.
In a transition period, yes.
Yeah.
But there's no reason to believe that this can't really be done completely by AI, right? And generative AI in particular will solve most of these challenges, right? So I think it's the first one. Now, if you are a system of record for SMBs like Jobber, right? There's a lot of things that, like sending out an invoice, you don't want to be AI native. You don't need to reinvent the invoice format every single time, right? You run lots of payments through it. You do the accounting, etc. You don't necessarily need kind of a generative AI solution for all of that. So it really depends on kind of what your business is. And some need to be AI native. ADA falls into that. And some kind of for the longest period of time, will have just pure software plus AI products on top of it, right? I think the second thing is, and that is really something that founders need to kind of push, is like, how hard do you lean into becoming AI native, or at least adopting AI tools across the organization, right? And we've seen some amazing progress from founders that have leaned very, very hard into this. Talking about ADA, I think Mike Murchison from ADA, he's one of the leaders in our portfolio that has leaned the hardest and the earliest into AI. And not only on the product side, right? But also internal operations, how everyone is adjusting, kind of using these tools,
cost centers,
et cetera. And so I would really see like there's certainly a market requirement for being AI native or not, right? And I think the market is still kind of figuring out kind of where exactly that lies. Not all software will be replaced by AI, right? And then secondly, the second big factor is like, how much do the founders top down drive kind of AI native approach, adoption of AI throughout the organizations?
On these on similar question, so one person billion-dollar companies, you're also seeing these massive growth rates of like 8 months to get to 100 million ARR. We all see the charts on LinkedIn. How front and center have you seen that unfold? And is that revenue good revenue? Is it like high quality?
I mean, to be seen.
Or are all those customers AI companies that are going to go out of business 8 months, so it's going to go 8 months to 100, listen, 8 months to 10?
It's to be seen. To be seen how it's going to work out, right? I would say a few things are going on, right? Obviously, there's lots of demand for AI products, right? And lots of people are trying out new things all the time, right? Now, three things can happen, right? The first one is, especially on the consumer side, that revenue might not be as sticky as it appears in the beginning, right? Lots of people trying it out don't really feel that's
haven't gone through the first renewal cycle.
Yeah, exactly. I think the second thing that is happening potentially, right? The whole ecosystem is getting kind of shaking up all the time, right? And so there's new competitors. Potentially the large foundational models are really coming up the stack. So whoever has the revenue, it might not be as sticky just because of competitive dynamics, right? And if that is from other startups, or if that is from the foundational models, or from the incumbents, right?
Yeah.
I think the third one is we see a lot of just very quick and rapid changes around monetization, right? Everybody's talking about kind of how inference is now kind of getting hopefully much cheaper with open source models, etc. So, long story short, I think we see incredible demand in the AI space, but also so many changes that I wouldn't say that right now it's like a stable playbook of this revenue sticky. If you see these metrics, I think we'll need another 2 to 3, perhaps even 5 years to really understand like what is really sticky, what is really has a moat, what can really be built on for kind of repeat revenues.
On those areas, I would say how do you determine if something's too late then, or if it's played out? So for instance, I run a company today. If I wasn't doing this company, I would look really at this kind of whole services space turning to AI, right?
Yeah.
You're not selling the AI, but you're selling the service at a cheaper rate because of AI.
Yeah.
One of those spaces is law and legal, but there's players out there that have raised big pools of capital. Couple questions in one, I guess I'm just kind of tinkering with it. You have these companies that would you still back AI for legal if it came out, if you saw that pitch?
Listen, it depends on two things, right? The first one is obviously the founder and the vision that the founder has for a ever-changing ecosystem, right? Like it's for sure whatever you pitch today, not gonna what's gonna work in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You need to reinvent yourself, especially in that space. I think the second thing is then also what is the differentiator? We have Legora and we have Harvey and we have Clio and Spellbook, etc. I mean, there's lots of companies already in that space, very well funded, right? There's obviously Anthropic with Claude, Law is pushing up. So you would have to have like a very clear idea of what exactly you're building and how it's differentiated and how it's potentially a niche that can be very important down the road, but you're the only one that kind of goes after that. Anyway, so it really depends. But it's obviously a very crowded space, right? And kind of like in coding, legal feels like the second category that has gotten very crowded very quickly.
Yeah, interesting. And then what about when you're thinking through what you just mentioned with Claude Legal, and because you guys are investing a lot at the app layer, what are you afraid that? I mean, you have to be a little afraid that Claude might say, okay, why are you even building at the app layer? Is that a total waste of time? Because Claude and the LLMs are going to take those verticals anyways.
I mean, a few things. I mean, first of all, I don't think, right?
Like, does Harvey go out of business because of Anthropic?
Will take all the app layer, right? But it really depends, right? If you're on a few things, right? First of all, how much implementation deployment has to be done, right? Coding is perfect, right? Because you can get very quickly to recursive, kind of a recursive development, right? Where you really understand that the code that you produce is actually working, right? You might even get very close to that in legal, right? It's also perfectly kind of encoded in legal terms, right? But there's many other verticals where it's not as clear, right? And you need to have humans in the loop, right? And you need to build processes around it. And you need to adjust it to a specific enterprise, right? And their integration,
stickiness, vendors.
And so from that point of view, I don't think like that's gonna, on the enterprise side, there's a winner takes all. There's some where obviously, coding and legal, the foundation model have a larger advantage, right? But then there's many others where I think it's not going to happen, right? Then secondly, on the consumer side, I think it's also a question of how many things can you kind of put into one app, right? Into one interface, right? And just because Google was super dominant in search doesn't mean that they kind of even if they had another tab, they really became the go-to place for many other for all of the use cases, right? That were adjacent to it, right? So from that point of view, I think like both in terms of the implementation piece And secondly, like the mind share piece or in the consumer side, I don't think it's going to be a winner takes all market. But having said all that, will the foundational companies like push up into the app layer more and more? Yes, for sure. Because at the same time, we have open source model kind of eating at their market share for kind of more standard queries based on cost, based on control of the model, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, to build kind of very large companies, they need to push into the app layer, and they're going to continue to do so.
Yeah, because you're an investor in Jobber, and there's a lot of these companies going after the home services space or the trades on the intake, kind of like the call intake. And I use the products or demo them, and it's like, oh, that's actually Claude though in the background. So you don't, but you still think that's fine. There's just a lot of room to build there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Jobber as like kind of the leading business management tool for home services businesses, right, is not only an intake form, right, and kind of streamlining intake.
They've gone all the way.
They are kind of business in a box, right? They have business in a box, right? It starts with scheduling a job, sending the team to the site, kind of doing the report, what has been done. Kind of getting sending out the invoice, getting the payment, getting some capital against kind of some of the outstanding invoices, getting a review, triggering a review from the customer, et cetera, right? Like there's really, you run your whole business as a home services business through it, and intake and responding to RFPs, et cetera, is one part of it. And obviously Jobber has products for that. Is it also a attractive wedge for new startups to enter? Yes, because every single business, home services or not, they're always interested in new customers. So lots of people have kind of gone after this, I would say, AI-driven marketing tool in whatever aspect, and it's an interesting area. Having said all that, right, Jobber has tens of thousands of customers. Very hard to acquire. It took a long time to acquire them, and they're solving their whole business needs in one product. So I see AI for Jobber, for example, like much more of an opportunity to expand the product range, to move faster on product roadmap, right, and kind of get additional revenues. But I also don't think like suddenly Claude will have a little app that helps home services businesses to streamline the intake.
Yeah, fair take. How big are your average checks, or like first checks into a company? So
in this most recent fund, we're thinking about it between 1.5 and 2.5 million US, right? Depending a little bit on the size of the round. But that's roughly the check sizes.
And do you guys typically take a board seat at that stage?
Yes, I mean I think it depends. So sometimes it's so early, you can take a board seat, but the action doesn't happen at a board meeting, right? Like because we're not. These are so early companies. So much innovation, so much change happens. You try to be on with the entrepreneur on a weekly, monthly basis, trying to give advice, etc. Right? Now, having said all that, right? Once kind of a board is established. We usually always take a board seat. We want to continue to be involved and kind of step up and help on that front. It's just often not practical to have a board meeting.
There's two founders.
It's too formal. It's too slow. It just doesn't move the needle at that stage.
Are there any companies you invest in where you're like super hands off? Like there's no board seat?
Yeah, I mean, it sometimes happens, but at the same time, listen, I mean, I think if you can't provide any value to the founder, it feels a little strange why you invested into that company, right? But it's not for the sake of like being like active or engaged or whatever it is. Like ultimately, I think we hopefully are a great partner to the founders, and even the best founders have moments where they need some support, right?
Totally.
They need some advice. They need a sparings partner that gives them feedback.
Yeah, totally. Marketplaces, that I would say that was certainly a thing you guys focused on.
Yeah.
I think you guys published the Marketplace napkin.
Yeah.
And there's a SaaStr napkin by another VC that you co-invest with a lot.
Yeah, Chris Accounts,
yeah. And I love the market. Do you guys still publish that?
So we have stopped publishing. I mean, we did the Marketplace Handbook and the Marketplace Napkin. And I would say two things have really happened, right? Like the traditional marketplaces, which was first commerce and then services, kind of have
out niching Craigslist.
Yeah, have kind of that opportunity has kind of gone.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
Perhaps with agentic commerce, perhaps that is coming back in a certain way because like this perhaps onboarding of supply going to be easier through agents.
Yeah.
Perhaps you like matching supply and demand going to be easier through agents. But like ultimately, I just don't think like there's that much opportunity left, right? But lots of the things have moved into completely different areas that are very, very kind of follow very different rules, right? Mostly because they are purely software, purely kind of digital, right? Think about in crypto, right? There's lots of, we call them exchanges, right? But kind of all of those are ultimately marketplaces, right? That you have a supply and a demand side, right? But obviously, the supply side is hyper liquid, right? Like money moves around, crypto moves around all the time. So it's like all the lesson learned of how to onboard physical supply and all the tricks to do that are not really relevant anymore. It's a very different mechanics, right? So from that point of view, I think like the old marketplace model, right, perhaps has been fine-tuned and well understood, etc. Everywhere where we see new marketplace models follows just a very different kind of pattern and has not much to do with the old one.
Yeah. If you weren't, and I guess they have so much scale that they're now implementing AI themselves, so it kind of defeats the purpose of maybe going out and starting
and to be honest, like, kind of I mean, take Airbnb as an example, right? Like could you build Airbnb today if there wasn't an Airbnb in a much more efficient way through agents? Yes, you could. I mean, no question about it. Does Airbnb have an incredible brand, incredible network effect,
and they're
lots of supply, etc.? Like
they probably have like an AI
and
lab.
So I think if you come in and say like, well, I'm going to rebuild Airbnb because I have like a 50% cost advantage of onboarding supply, it's not going to move the needle, right? There might be some areas where that moves the needle, right? But overall, I think marketplaces feels like in the services and kind of physical goods place have been figured out.
Yeah. A big theme I was reading when you guys announced it was about a month ago, I think you guys announced the fund, was the kind of thematic focus on outliers. Yeah. What are kind of outliers to you? Are they founders that are working on some frontier idea before the market takes off? Are they kind of in their mom's basement and have bootstrapped for 8 years and the thing's like finally going? Like, what is it exactly to you?
So first of all, I think it's super important to realize and to state that venture investing, right, and ultimately startup building has always been an outlier business, it's right? An outlier business, most of the value
for our viewers, that means
will accrue to very few companies and hence very few investors and founders, right? And so it has always been an outlier business. Now, I think what we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years is, I would say, an even increasing kind of effect of outliers onto the overall outcomes, and driven by a few things. First of all, so much more competition, right? That ultimately the breakout winner, if they can pull away because of capital raises, because of mind share, etc., kind of will trump everyone else in a big way. Secondly, large network effects, right, across these companies, that if you kind of create the network effects, you're going to have even a bigger outcome. And then last but not least, also fewer exit opportunities for lots of the companies. Like, we haven't really seen many strategic M&A. We haven't really seen smaller IPOs, etc. So it feels like lots of the value has really kind of moved to
the creme de la creme.
The creme de la creme, like the top 10, 20 startups, right? And you see that also in secondary markets. It's like, people always talk about, like, like the growth of secondary markets and how it provides liquidity to so many companies and so many investors and founders, etc. But the reality is, like, not much matters outside the top 10 and 20 names, right? And certainly not the tens of thousands of startups that also kind of looking for liquidity. So when we think about outliers, and you have to say potential outliers, because there's nobody, right, that in this world that at that early stage, nails 100%, right, what an outlier will be, an outlier company will be, right? But I think there's three really important ingredients to it, right? It starts with a founder, somebody that is deeply passionate about solving a specific problem in a specific space, has spent some time thinking about it. And I contrast that to an opportunistic founder that woke up in the morning and said, like, AI is cool, so much going on, I need to be AI. I look at the request for startup list from YC, go down the list and pick number 7, right, to go after that, right?
Buy a domain.ai and I'm off.
And so I think what we really feel is, like, outlier companies can only be built over a long period of time with a persistence of a mission-driven founders that stays in the game, even if they hit the wall once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, right? So that's where it really starts, with kind of the founder quality, ambitious, persistent, mission-driven, passionate about the problem that they're solving, and kind of going after that, right? It secondly kind of continues with a unique insight that these founders have, a unique approach to something. It's not the company number 10 that you've seen in a certain space, right? It's something where you stop in your tracks, right? You stop reading an email and say, like, oh, wow, I've never thought this was a problem. I never thought this was even possible, right? I never heard of this before. I don't think any founder has ever pitched me a similar idea, right? That's where it kind of really, it is unique. And it doesn't mean, obviously, that nobody else will ever going to go after that, right? But at least, like, it's a first kind of control point where it's like, this is very unique. This is really, really interesting. And then last but not least, obviously in a market that has, that you can see will have lots of tailwinds, right? Because it follows a trend. There's a big need in the market. It's a big tailwind that you can kind of imagine over time, and something that looks like a largest market right now becomes even larger, and you're there with a very unique solution, kind of capturing that.
And just kind of riff for a second on that. So I would agree, and a lot of data's out there. So I would say outliers are in, right? Like, that's more than ever what you're saying, if I can summarize. More than ever, the creme de la creme of startups, and that top 10, I think 10% is being, probably 5% are the ones where, and more than ever in history, that's important. Now, also said, obviously, part of our business, you're going to have a lot of flame out, a lot of carnage, a lot of failures. You're still going to have a lot of that. But I think you're going to also have, a lot more, not billionaires and trillionaires. Obviously, you'll have some of those, of the outliers, but you'll have a lot more millionaires and that kind of messy middle of startups that have raised, maybe you invested in their Series A and they just are at, 7 to 15 million. they're not burning. They're in a great space, but they're number 10. They're doing demos every day.
Yeah.
They're signing customers up. What do you say to, they're not going to raise any more.
Yeah.
They could maybe if they could kind of, but what do you say to those startups? Because they're not going to do much for your fund.
Yeah, but listen, I think that really comes down to the founder decision, right? I think founders, if they are energized driving this business, right, reinventing that business potentially down the road, right, and they feel like this is the best way they can spend their time, go for it, right? If you decide like, well, I'm not really energized anymore by this, right? I think I'd rather start something new. Like, try to sell the company, right? Like, we're not. I don't think we're pushed for one or the other.
It
needs
matter.
to come from no, but it needs to come from the founder, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's their time, right? We've seen some incredible successes of founders and businesses that for the longest period of time didn't really go anywhere, right? But they were kind of hanging in there, building their base, learning more about the market. And then there was a slight little pivot that they figured out, a slight little twist to their business, or just a market that has reinvented kind of created new opportunities that kind of completely changed things, right? So it can happen all the time, right? I mean, I'm an angel investor in a company called Boom, which Blake building supersonic planes, right? Super tough business, right? But he suddenly figured out that, well, the engines that are building can also be used for kind of the turbines can be used for energy creation at data centers, right? And that has suddenly
now
given
data
him,
centers are all the rage.
Suddenly given him an incredible opportunity, right, of getting to cash flow break even, not having to raise money anymore, right, and finding the startup through that era. We're investors in a Vancouver company called Moment Energy, right, which creates backup battery storage, and from repurposing EV batteries, right? So you take these EV batteries, and you kind of analyze them and test them. You put a new battery management system on top of it, and it becomes like these huge battery management systems that can for energy storage, right? For when they started it was much more a clean tech story, right? And it grew really nicely. They made great progress on technology, but really through the data center boom, suddenly that company had like so incredible tailwinds, right? And so, sometimes you might be kind of just growing slowly, not explosively, hanging in there, making some progress, but it feels incremental. And then something happens in the market, or something you figure out, like Blake with kind of repurposing engines for data centers, right? That suddenly makes this whole thing explode. And so, but coming back for all of these things, like I think it's super important to realize two things. Most companies take a long time to develop, and they're never on a linear path, right? And it's not over until it's over. And then secondly, but it all starts with the founder being committed to that business, being energized by the business, grinding on a daily basis, and keep pushing forward, right? And you never know. Like, it might happen in year 7 or 8, or 9 or 10. Right?
What a shame it would be if you don't give yourself that chance at 7 or 8. How do you respond to emails so quickly? Like, you're not an investor in my company, so. But there's a vested interest in fostering the community. But aside from that, you respond to my emails like,
I mean, I'm always on, and to be honest, like, I feel like once I see an email, I only want to touch it once. That means like I take a quick decision what I'm going to say back, right? Like, in most of the cases, the decision not going to be better, different. When I look at it again in 6 hours or 6 days, right? So from that point of view, I see an email, I'm take a decision what I want to respond, and then I do it.
You have a family. You obviously run a venture fund. How much AUM?
So close to 500 million Canadian now.
Oh, wow.
Between kind of in total 8 funds, 5 core funds, and then 3 opportunity funds.
3 opportunity funds, 5 core funds, 500 million roughly Canadian AUM. If you weren't family, if you weren't running the fund, what would you do with your time?
To be honest, I mean, I do. I'm super active in sports and outdoors, and I love that. But to be honest, this is like the perfect life. I love my job, right? Love hanging out with the family, and between these two, and a little bit of outdoors, health related, sports, etc. That's there's no kind of incentive or kind of idea of going golfing tomorrow or starting a startup again or something like that. Right? So
don't do that. If I could give you some advice, don't do that.
I love where I am.
Nice. Thanks, Boris. I appreciate the time, man. This is awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Awesome stuff.